25 years is a long time. It's a quarter century. And for anyone familiar with dirt tracks, or particularly our YouTube channel, you know how much I love the Grizzly lineup. Heck, I've owned 2 of these machines as my personal ATVs over the years. Are they the fastest? No, but that's never really been their claim. However, the Grizzly rides and handles amazingly well, and its reputation for quality, durability, and reliability is unmatched. We were recently invited to Colorado by Yamaha to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Grizzly and ride the trails in the Rampart Range Recreational Park located in the Pike San Isabel National Forest, which is about 35 miles southwest of Denver. Narrow paths winding through the mountainous terrain, reaching elevations of nearly 9,000 feet at the most scenic points. This wasn't side-by-side country, folks, and it was the perfect place for the Grizzly to showcase its strengths. I hear so much chatter and read so many comments about how badly Yamaha needs an 850 twin in its lineup, and I admit, I'm guilty of throwing gas on that flame too. But the reality is, if Yamaha did introduce a larger displacement engine in its Grizzly lineup, there's gotta be a place for this current 686cc single. Its power was perfect for this trail system, and I honestly feel like a more powerful engine would have been too much for where we rode. I know it sounds stupid, and I do actually hear myself saying it, but the reality is feathering the throttle on a 1000cc V-twin all day would have been maddening on these trails. And one blip from a too itchy throttle thumb could have sent a bigger bore ATV off the side of the mountain. The power out of the Grizzly 686 is manageable and predictable, and clutching from Yamaha's Ultramatic CVT is smooth and linear and never skipped a beat the entire day. I've been lucky enough to get some seat time on the 25th anniversary edition of the Grizzly SE following Luke's test ride this past fall. And as I've mentioned in my past review of the Grizzly SE, I'm not the biggest fan of the Maxxis Zillas for trail riding. Thankfully, Yamaha outfitted my Grizzly with 28-inch GBC Grim Reaper tires, which best suited the type of terrain we were riding on, which consisted of loose pebbly dirt and rocky and aggressive hill climbs. Honestly, this tire is a much better choice for the SE, and I have to wonder if we'll be seeing it on all SEs next season. While here, I was able to sit down with Pat Biolsi, ATV and side-by-side testing manager for Yamaha Motor Corporation USA, to discuss key milestones in the 25-year history of the Grizzly, dating back to the 1998 Grizzly 600, which was the highest displacement ATV at the time. It wasn't just power that made the Grizzly stand out, and its innovations helped shape the ATV industry and started the Grizzly's journey towards this 25-year legacy. Yamaha's belt durability is legendary, and a lot of that credit goes directly to its Ultramatic CVT.
Yeah, the original Grizzly 600, of course it was the biggest displacement ATV at the time, 600 cc's. It was air and oil cooled back then, but probably the most lasting revolutionary change that was really made and helped the Grizzly live on for 25 years was the Ultramatic system. Belt durability was the #1 problem that we really wanted to solve with the Ultramatic system. So how did it solve that? With constant belt tension. How did we achieve constant belt tension? By putting a centrifugal clutch, which we were very familiar with. All of our semi-automatic ATVs have some version of a centrifugal clutch inside the motor, and we added that to our system, and that takes all the abuse. Ride in high range, low range, pull things, go up steep hills, and you really have that constant belt tension, keeps the belt temperature down and enhances that durability and really meets people's expectations. And that system has carried on for 25 years.
Apart from extending belt life, Yamaha's Ultramatic transmission adds to the ride experience with its use of a Sprag clutch, which solves the problem of engine braking.
Yeah, the second key problem that Ultramatic solved was engine braking. So the Sprag clutch, or the one-way bearing that's in the Ultramatic system, it reconnects the engine to the driveline, where a lot of the other typical CVT systems of the time, and still to this day, they separate. When engine RPM drops below wheel speed, it actually disengages and feels like it was popped into neutral. If you're in four-wheel drive, you get four-wheel engine braking because of that one-way bearing or that Sprag clutch. A lot of the other systems out there, they don't do that, even to this day, 25 years later. So again, the one-way bearing and the strift clutch, those two key components of Ultramatic have helped Grizzly carry on for 25 years.
In 2002, the Grizzly saw its next big move up the evolutionary ladder with the introduction of the 660 single, along with independent rear suspension.
So going to the 2002 model year, we launched the Grizzly 660. There's a couple key innovations for the 660. Number one was independent rear suspension. The previous Grizzly 600 was a solid axle rear suspension. IRS was a big deal. It really enhanced traction, it enhanced comfort, terrainability was drastically improved.
This was a big year for the Grizzly because not only did we see a new engine and IRS, but we also saw the enhancement of its on-command system with the introduction of front diff lock.
The other key component was enhancing of the on-command system, which we did have on the Grizzly 600, the switchable two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. But the 600 had four-wheel drive limited slip only. But the 660, we added a front differential lock. So you had three choices now: two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive limited slip, and now diff lock with the Grizzly 660. And that was huge. Really a huge percentage of the time, most customers are perfectly happy with it. It works in a variety of situations, but there's a couple, when you're doing any steep technical terrain where you really, as soon as that tire touches the ground, you want to make sure it's grabbing the same speed and the same amount of torque as the other side. The front diff lock does that. Deep mud, steep technical terrain, especially if one tire maybe is going to get light or maybe even come off the ground, and you really want to make sure when that other tire touches the ground that it's pulling at the same amount of torque as the other side. That's where front differential lock was key, and that was a big enhancement for the 660. The second point, of course, it was liquid cooled now, slightly bigger displacement, but the on-command system and independent rear suspension, those were the key innovations for the Grizzly 660.
In 2007, Yamaha squeezed a bit more juice into the Grizzly with the introduction of its now iconic fuel-injected 686cc single-cylinder engine.
Of course, with the Grizzly 700, it really went from a 660 to a 686cc engine. It was single overhead cam, it was tilted forward, and we really wanted to make that big bore feel from the engine. We didn't want the engine to really impact the handling of the character of the vehicle. So we tilted the cylinder forward, we kept the head very compact and low and as centralized as possible. Carries over all the great innovations we made with the 600 and the 660. On-command system's the same. Independent rear suspension is carried over now. We've enhanced the chassis a little bit, new suspension settings and things like that. But really the big things that were introduced with the Grizzly 700, of course, was fuel injection. That was a big one. Again, riding at elevation like we are today, that makes a huge difference. Going from lower elevations to higher elevations, not having to rejet, having it work from 7,000 to 9,000 feet like we are today, that's a huge enhancement.
2007 was a big year not just for the Grizzly, but for the entire ATV industry, because not only did Yamaha introduce a larger displacement fuel-injected engine, they also introduced an industry first, electronic power steering. EPS was a massive innovation for off-road. Now all of a sudden you could ride longer and more aggressively than ever before while reducing fatigue in your arms and shoulders. Slow speed navigation was as smooth as a watercraft, and the rider was simultaneously insulated from the trail while never feeling more connected to it than ever before.
Something we really focused on during the development of that power steering system is that we had that balance of positive and negative feedback. You want to be able to feel what the tires are doing, but of course, lighten the steering effort and reduce negative feedback. When you hit that trail obstacle, the rock, the tree root in the trail, it acts like a steering damper and really, again, enhances people's ability to ride all day. The other key thing we did with the Grizzly 700 was we moved the fuel tank up from its traditional location up on top to down between the frame rails and moved the filler neck as well, so that all that weight of the fuel was in a lower, more centralized location. So that was a huge difference for the Grizzly 700. Is it had a lot of power, but it was very smooth, very manageable, and of course, all the weight was as centralized as possible.
2016 saw the next big update for the Grizzly, featuring a complete bodywork overhaul that now better suited its aggressive legacy, along with a non-Yamaha built 708cc single developed in partnership with Subaru, and this made room for the smaller stature Kodiak. This also drew a clear line to differentiate these two similarly powered units within Yamaha's ATV lineup.
There was a couple of key points, especially when we introduced the Kodiak 700, where Grizzly styling really took a slightly different direction, a much more aggressive, more recreation-focused direction. The engines are the same between the Kodiak 700 and the Grizzly 700, but there's a much different concept there. The Kodiak 700 is smaller, lower to the ground, lower seat height, a little bit more narrow track width, smaller tires, a 25-inch tire versus the 26 and the 27-inch tire now on the Grizzly 700. But it's bigger, higher shoulders on the fenders, taller seat height, it's thicker, taller handlebars. It really is a lot of fun to ride. You can sit or stand, trail whoops and things like that, like we have here in the Western US. You want to get up off the seat and drive it or ride it in a way that's a little bit more sporty, a little bit more recreation focused, whereas the Kodiak's, again, a little bit more utility focused around the farm, around the property, and Grizzly styling is part of that concept.
That 708 only lasted a few seasons until Yamaha brought back the 686 in the Grizzly, which is pretty much the model we see today. That said, I had a 2016 Grizzly and I loved it, and those updates to its bodywork made it stand out amongst its competition.
Styling, the Grizzly styling, is really a key part of its concept in that recreation-focused direction. Handling character of the Grizzly just made people comfortable in a wide variety of situations, technical, tight terrain, twisty terrain. The R chassis really shines in those situations.
Who knows what the future of the Grizzly will hold, or what Yamaha's next big innovation will be? Will we see a Grizzly cross country? Or what about a factory mutter? Or what about a two-up? Maybe they'll bring us that 850 twin. Regardless of what we see from this line, all of us here at Trax extend our heartfelt congratulations to Yamaha for 25 years of the Grizzly, and look forward to another 25 years to come.